Harry Potter was never meant to be alone. Imagine a timeline where the boy who lived had a twin, a sister, let's call her Lyra. But while Harry was destined for Gryffindor glory, Lyra was forged in the shadows of Slytherin. Today we are rewriting the Wizarding world to answer one question. What happens when the Chosen One has a sister willing to burn the world down to save him? We start on that fateful Halloween night. Lily and James Potter have twins, Harry and Lyra. The prophecy applies to both, but Voldemort chooses Harry as the primary target. When the killing curse is fired, the magical backlash is focused entirely on the boy. Harry receives the lightning bolt scar and absorbs the Horcrux fragment. Lyra is saved by the blast radius of her mother's love, but she is physically unmarked. This distinction defines their lives. They are sent to the Dursleys, and while the old magic of Lily's sacrifice runs in both their veins, the world only cares about Harry. He is the saviour. Lyra is just the sister. They grow up clinging to each other, a two-person army against a hostile world. The sorting ceremony marks the first true fracture in their lives. For 11 years they were a single unit. Now they are placed on opposite sides of a 1,000-year-old war. Harry is welcomed into Gryffindor with open arms, instantly becoming the golden boy, surrounded by warmth and friends. But Lyra, the hat sees the desperation in her, the willingness to do anything to survive, and sends her to Slytherin. Suddenly, Lyra is isolated in the dungeons. She quickly realizes that being Harry Potter's sister puts a massive target on her back in the snake pit. To survive here, she can't be brave like Harry. She has to be cunning. She learns to trade favors, hide her true feelings, and strike first. Despite the house rivalry, the twins refuse to let go. They form an awkward quad with Ron and Hermione. But the dynamic is shifted. Lyra becomes the group's pragmatist, the one willing to play dirty, while Harry remains the moral compass, constantly pulling his sister back from the edge. But we have to talk about the snake in the room, Draco Malfoy. In the original timeline, Draco rules Slytherin unopposed because of his father's money and blood status. But here, he has a massive problem. Lyra Potter isn't a scared mudblood or blood traitor Weasley. She is a half-blood, yes, but she is also a Potter. By their third year, a cold war breaks out in the dungeons. Draco tries to bully her using the Potter Stinks badges and mocking her brother. But Lyra doesn't retaliate with emotional outbursts. She retaliates with cold, hard politics. She realizes that while Draco buys loyalty, she can earn it. She starts targeting the students Draco ignores, the smart ones, the half-bloods, and the purebloods who are tired of Malfoy's arrogance. She helps them ace their potions essays and teaches them defensive spells Draco doesn't know. By the time Prisoner of Azkaban arrives, the Slytherin common room is split down the middle. You have Draco's faction, the loud, traditional pureblood supremacists, and then you have Lyra's faction, the ambitious, talented students who realize that while Malfoy talks about power, Lyra is the one actually wielding it. And then there's Severus Snape. In canon, Snape hates Harry because when he looks at him, he sees James Potter's arrogance. But when he looks at Lyra, he sees a ghost. She looks exactly like Lily, but she wears the green robes of his own house. She sits in his classroom, brilliant at potions, quiet and observant. For Snape, this is psychological torture. He cannot bully her the way he bullies Harry. Every time he goes to sneer at her, he sees the woman he loves staring back. This changes the dynamic entirely. He becomes harder on Harry, taking out his confused frustration on the Gryffindor twin, but he becomes strangely protective of Lyra. He grades her harsher than the other Slytherins, pushing her to perfection, almost trying to mould her into the witch Lily should have been. It's a twisted mentorship. Lyra learns her occlumency not from Dumbledore, but from Snape, recognizing that he is the only teacher who understands that sometimes, to do good, you have to be comfortable in the dark. The isolation reaches its peak in their 4th year. When Harry's name flies out of the Goblet of Fire, Lyra is paralysed by a new terrifying feeling. Helplessness. For the first time, she cannot stand beside him. The tournament rules separate them. She is forced to sit in the stands, a spectator, watching her twin face dragons and drowning alone. Every task is a reminder that she isn't strong enough to keep him safe. The Yule Ball becomes Lyra's debutant ball. While Harry and Ron are panicking about dates, Lyra treats the evening like a tactical operation. She knows she needs allies outside of Hogwarts. She doesn't go with a friend. and she certainly doesn't go with a romantic interest. She shocks the entire school by attending with a Dunstring student, not Crumb, someone close to Karkaroff. It's a power move. She spends the entire night gathering information on how the dark arts are taught abroad, listening to whispers about Grindelwald's old symbol. While Hermione is having her Cinderella moment, Lyra is in the shadows of the dance floor, networking. She realises that the wizarding world is bigger than Hogwarts, and if she wants to keep Harry safe, she needs to know what threats are coming from across the ocean. But the breaking point is the third task. Harry disappears into the maze and returns, clutching Cedric's dead body, traumatised by the graveyard and the return of Voldemort. Lyra sees the aftermath, Harry shaken, broken, having faced the Dark Lord, with nothing but a disarming charm. She realises that while she was cheering from the bleachers, Harry almost died. The guilt consumes her. She vows that she will never again leave his fate to chance, or to the rules of a tournament. The trauma of the 4th year bleeds directly into the 5th. Lyra is now hypervigilant, but the Department of Mysteries proves that vigilance isn't enough. She stands in the ruins of the Ministry, watching the Order of the Phoenix fail. She watches Sirius Black fall through the veil. She sees Harry's Gryffindor heroics nearly get him killed again. In that moment, Lyra snaps. She decides that the light side is weak. Relying on hope, kindness, and Dumbledore's cryptic riddles is a death sentence. She concludes that the only way to prevent another graveyard, another Cedric, or another Sirius is to stop playing defense. Lyra realizes that a disarming charm won't stop a Dark Lord. She needs a weapon of mass destruction. She disappears into the Room of Requirement, bypassing the standard curriculum, and diving into the darkest texts imaginable. She isn't looking for forbidden curses, she is looking for Fiendfyre. This isn't just a spell, it's a chaotic beast, living, cursed fire that consumes everything in its path. We saw Crabbe die trying to cast this in the original timeline, in the books. But Lyra, she pours every ounce of her obsession into mastering the Inferno. She spends months turning the most volatile magic in existence into her personal guard dog. This is her guarantee. She will not fail Harry again. The turning point isn't the war itself, but the night Dumbledore dies. When the headmaster falls from the astronomy tower, Harry is shattered by grief. The Order is in panic, but Lyra, she doesn't mourn. She stands over Dumbledore's body and realises the safety net is finally gone. The time for school rules is over. During the Horcrux hunt, the dynamic shifts completely. In the original timeline, the trio wanders aimlessly, starving and arguing, with Ron eventually leaving. But here, Lyra refuses to let them crumble. She becomes the group's terrifying efficient general. When food runs out, she doesn't fish or forage. She steals from Muggle farms, using memory charms without hesitation. When the Locket Horcrux tries to corrupt them, it feeds on Ron's insecurity and Harry's anger. But when Lyra wears it, the locket tries to tempt her with power, showing her visions of herself as a dark queen. But Lyra laughs at it. She doesn't want to rule the world. She just wants to keep her brother in it. Her singular obsession with Harry makes her immune to the Horcrux's ambition. The ultimate test comes at Malfoy Manor. When the Snatchers catch them, it's Lyra who takes charge. While Hermione is tortured by Bellatrix Lestrange, Lyra doesn't scream. She analyses. She recognises that Bellatrix respects strength, not mercy. Lyra taunts Bellatrix, using her Slytherin knowledge to stall, buying Dobby enough time to rescue them. She leaves the manor not as a victim, but as a survivor, who looked the wildest Death Eater in the eye and didn't blink. Before we head into the final battle, I have a question for you. Lyra has crossed a lot of lines to get here. She's using unforgivable curses, Fiendfyre, and manipulation. So here's the question. Do you think the ends justify the means? Is Lyra a hero for doing whatever it takes to save her brother? Or has she officially become the villain? Let me know in the comments. Would you use dark magic to save your sibling? When Dumbledore dies and the truth about the Horcruxes is revealed, the puzzle finally snaps into place for Lyra. The scar, the connection, Harry is the final Horcrux. She realises the endgame before anyone else. Harry has to die. They enter the Forbidden Forest together. It's a heartbreaking reversal of roles. Usually Lyra protects Harry, but this time Harry stops her. He knows what he has to do. They make a pact. Harry will face Voldemort to trigger the endgame, and Lyra must survive to finish it. As they approach Voldemort in the Forbidden Forest, He raises the Elder Wand. The green light flashes, but in a twist of cruelty, he aims not at Harry, but at Lyra, the spare. In a split second, Harry does exactly what his mother did 17 years ago. He throws his body in the way. The curse hits, Harry falls, and the Horcrux inside him is obliterated. Voldemort laughs, thinking he's won, but he has just made a fatal error. By dying willingly to save his sister, Harry has activated the sacrificial protection. A shield of old magic now covers Lyra, and Voldemort cannot touch her. Lyra stands up. She doesn't scream, she doesn't cry. She unleashes hell. She casts Fiendfyre. The cursed dragon erupts from her wand, a tidal wave of flame that devours Nagini instantly. Voldemort turns to kill Lyra, firing the killing curse, but the spell dissolves against Harry's protection. The magic rebounds. The Dark Lord is mortal, defenseless, and his own curse tears him apart. Dust settles over the clearing. Lyra stands alone, the victor, convinced she has paid the ultimate price. She saved the world, but lost her twin. But the story doesn't end there. Because Voldemort used Harry's blood to rebuild his body in the Goblet of Fire, he tethered Harry to life. And because Harry walked to his death willingly, he became the master of death. Harry stirs. He rises from the forest floor, the soul fragment gone, but his own soul intact. The reunion is an emotional peak of the timeline. Lyra, the ruthless Slytherin who was ready to burn the world, collapsing into the arms of the Gryffindor who died to save it. They defeated the Dark Lord, not as the boy who lived, but as the twins who conquered, proving that while Lyra had the power, it was their bond that held the true magic. The victory at the Forbidden Forest was supposed to be the end, the moment the wizarding world exhaled and returned to the light. But for Lyra Potter, the silence that followed the Dark Lord's ash was never a sign of peace. It was a warning. She realised that while Voldemort was gone, the vacuum he left behind was a breeding ground for new hungers. The happily ever after promised by the Ministry was a fragile mask, and Lyra knew that someone had to be the person who kept the mask from slipping. Years later, the dungeons of Hogwarts remain the centre of her world, but the atmosphere has shifted. Lyra hasn't just replaced Severus Snape, she has perfected his legacy. The potions classroom is no longer a place of fear, but a sanctuary of cold, clinical precision. She moves through the green-lit shadows not as a teacher, but as an architect of survival. When she watches the sorting ceremony, she doesn't look for the brave or the loyal. Her eyes search for the flinching shoulders of a half-blood who feels out of place, or the quiet ambition of the girl who realizes the world isn't fair. She brings these students into the deep chill of the dungeons and gives them what Snape gave her, the permission to be dangerous. She mentors them in the art of grey, ensuring the next generation of Slytherins isn't a breeding ground of Dark Lords, but a secret guard for the stability of the realm. But the classroom is only the surface of her sovereign reach. The networking Lyra began during the Yule Ball, the whispers she gathered from the students of Durmstrang and the forgotten corners of Europe, has evolved into a global intelligence web. While the Ministry of Magic celebrates Harry Potter as the legendary head aura, the face of justice and the shield of the light, Lyra operates in the nameless space they refuse to acknowledge. She has become the silent partner in Harry's peace. When a dark artifact surfaces in a black market in Sophia, it doesn't reach the aura's desk, it vanishes into Lyra's private collection. When a disgruntled Death Eater faction begins to whisper of a new uprising in the shadows of the Alps, they don't find a ministry trial. They find a dragon of cursed fire that leaves no witnesses and no evidence. She is the unspoken minister, the one who handles the erasures so that Harry can keep his hands clean. She has embraced the role of the villain so that her brother can remain the hero. The dynamic between the twins has become a study in perfect, silent balance. They exist in a state of unspoken understanding that requires no dialogue. On the rare nights when Harry visits the dungeons, the weight of his public life, the expectations, the fame, the endless demands of a world that view him as a god, seems to lift the moment he enters the green glow of Lyra's office. He sees the dossiers on her desk, the names of threats he never had to face because she broke them in the cradle. He sees the jagged, dark marks on her soul that he spent his life trying to prevent, and he finally accepts that they were the price of his own survival. They sit together by the fire, a Gryffindor heart and a Slytherin soul, watching the embers. There is a terrifying beauty in their bond, a two-person fortress that time has only reinforced. Harry provides the hope the world needs to keep moving forward, while Lyra provides the ruthlessness required to keep the world safe. The story of the Potters didn't end with a scar or a forest. It ended with the creation of a new kind of power. A world guarded by a twin who was willing to let her own soul burn to keep her brother's light from flickering. They are the twins who conquered, and as long as Lyra Potter walks the shadows of the dungeons, the wizarding world will never have to worry about the dark again, because the darkness finally has a master who knows exactly how to keep it in its place. Before we close the book on Lyra and Harry, I wanted to take a moment and say a massive thank you. As some of you may know, I had to re-upload this video due to a copyright complication, but it actually gave me a chance to do something I've wanted to do for a long time, finally tell the rest of the story. I wanted to reward those of you who came back to watch this timeline again with the bonus epilogue, and as a way of showing my appreciation for your patience and your support. I truly hope you enjoyed this deeper look into the sovereignty of the twins. Your comments and theories are what keep this channel growing, so please let me know what you thought of Lyra's final fate in the comments below. If you haven't already, hitting that like button and subscribing is the best way to help the channel. Thanks very much for watching. See you in the next one.